Arc Raiders absolutely caught fire with its launch and the following months beyond, initially setting a wild reverse trend of a launch that only picked up as time progressed for the first few weeks to months, peaking to its all-time high 2 months after the game's release. But as time progresses, as updates slow down, player hours grow and content additions get further away. It's a natural byproduct of any live service game, and for many that don't have multiple studios contributing to a project, it's hard to keep up with that. Endgame content, the stuff you grind for, the stuff that keeps veterans playing season over season, wipe after wipe, day after day, is one of the things that since the very beginning has been closely scrutinized. Today, while I'm sure there's a myriad of different things that we could discuss about how to fix Arc Raiders, today I wanted to take some time to pitch some ideas that I personally had that we discussed on stream here and there, but perhaps as my formal pitch to embark in this one. If you've got any idea you'd like to add, let it rip in the comment section below. Drop your thoughts, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and hey, keep an eye out for more streams in the future to join the discussions as they happen live. Finally, check out my friends over at Advanced GG, where code Espresso can get you 10% off your entire order, but more on that a little later. For now, let's get into it. So there's a lot to talk about here in this, a bunch of different ideas that we have for this video, but let's start first and foremost by expanding the current systems we have in place. Ideas to add on to what we already see, instead of perhaps inventing new systems entirely. First, let's talk about sort of expanding our leveling system. I've told this story before, but one of the things that you could probably say like irrationally annoys me is the level grind. Levels, as we know, are mostly tethered for skill points, but that's about it really. The only additional thing that's worth mentioning here with leveling is that you can end up getting pieces to the Sforza skin. Level 1 to 75, you end up gaining pieces of that at different checkpoints in that level progression. To this day, still my favorite skin in Arc Raiders, but when the game launched, I was all worried at the first expedition window that I'd miss out on the opportunity to earn this skin in full, because at that time we were juggling content and playing Battlefield 6, Red Sec's launch, Arc Raiders, and then Black Ops 7's launch window for content. We were playing a lot of things for content and for videos, but not necessarily grinding one thing in particular, not putting our all into one game. Just not enough time in the day to do all that kind of stuff. So towards the end, as we were getting towards Expedition 1, I think I finished at like level 71 or something like that. I think that I was only missing the cape, and I was like, okay, that's fine, we're good. I accepted my fate. We weren't going to end up seeing the full completion of that, but it was okay. Only to realize, oh, well, on the other side of the expedition, it's still level 75, the Sforza skin. I can do it again. I can get it in full. And then, well, the same thing happened with Expedition 2, Expedition 3, and even now, Expedition 4. Level 1 to 75 grants you skill points, and still the same Sforza skin from the launch of the game. Now, obviously, skill points are the main draw, but why haven't we seen a new skin change at all? An expedition exclusive 1 to 75, like each time you wipe, you're offered a new 75 skin for that expedition, which seems pretty low in maintenance and gives you like an exclusive kind of addition to showing off you've done this, right? But okay, what if we took it a step further? Because myself, I hit level 75 like a week and a half ago at this point, and that's not even grinding nearly as hard as I had in the past. So right now, not only is a reward I've already earned multiple times over completed, but all the XP that I've gained since then and until the next wipe is essentially useless. But what if it wasn't? My idea: prestiges, tiers, phases, whatever you want to call it, but a way to do the level grind over within the same expedition window. My pitch: 3 possible phases of your expedition with an upgradable skin with 3 phases within each. Your reward, think of it like a new skin of each expedition window. Level 1 to 75 completes phase 1 like the patchwork for expedition 1. Reset within that window, do 1 to 75 again for phase 2 like patchwork phase 2. With expedition 2, and well, one more time for 75, 225 levels total within an expedition season to secure phase 3 of an exclusive skin. Not only does that then give you the incentive for each expedition season, an exclusive reward coming along with it, but it also gives you a reason to grind XP more in a way that will grant exclusive rewards for those wanting to grind, while also not really like power scaling to a degree that nobody else can catch up, because you're not going specifically for skill points after that first time. So on one hand, it gives a reason to progress towards something, a longer term goal, while also not being much of anything that you miss out on if it's something you can't play or grind that much. It feels low maintenance and gives more XP progression room to grow instead of being level capped in with the same old Sforza skin that you've earned a handful of times. Next, another thing that, in similar fashion, let's say irks me, is quest rewards. Right up front, I fully acknowledge that these are meant to be onboarding tools, helping new players get the hang of systems in play while also granting them some loot as they learn the ropes. Same with the reset, doing it over again, getting you some gear where you may not have any in your inventory. However, most of those things that after you learn the ropes, after you do an expedition, you're doing these quests twice, 3 times over, 4 times over, it's not really all that worthwhile, and you still end up having the same rewards half the time. Because any and all cosmetic rewards you go throughout the expedition and the quest, you don't actually earn them again if you've done them before. It's just placeholder stuff that shows that you earn this, but it's not like they're going to give you 2 of the same backpack charm. So here's the thing. I know that new quests exclusive to each expedition, like 75 quests for every expedition window you do, that is not a likely scenario. I have minimal knowledge, but have talked to plenty of devs who handle progressive and sequential challenge architecture like this kind of stuff, that it essentially becomes a detective's corkboard. The more pins and red string you put to connect all that kind of stuff, the harder it is to avoid things getting snagged and tangled, and then in a sort of binary perspective, a computer miscommunicating with itself, that things bug out all the time in that regard. So the more and more you have to do with that, the more problems it likely introduces, not to mention that dev time is surprisingly one of the harder things to connect in code, again, from my recollection with devs that do similar stuff like this. So new quests every time is kind of out of the question, but like, my pitch, maybe we get some new cosmetic rewards in place of the ones that we otherwise would see that go to waste, or something different entirely, maybe like some low-level blueprints or even XP. Blueprints appeared like they were going to be in quests more and more, as we had things like, I want to say it was the Vita shot that was introduced in a later quest with a seasonal update, but we didn't really see too much more come of that, and especially not at the lower levels and the more base levels of what these quests would have for multiple repeats. It was mentioned in interviews in the past that they kind of wanted to change how players could interact with a game to earn blueprints, not necessarily just relying on looting and RNG, that this could have been a way that they could have done that, and they seem to be setting up for that, but we didn't see anything come of that. But replace those things you would have gotten multiple times over with, say, some just lower level blueprints just as a way to get things other than looting and RNG, and I think you'd have a nice setup there. Or even XP. Back in the tech test last year in April or May, that was a thing. XP was awarded for contract completion. I'd even take that rather than something that isn't actually rewarded. Another thing out there that I think could be beneficial to the air quote end game and keeping players grinding a little bit is projects being challenge and item oriented, kind of similar to what we've seen with the most recent Phantom Targets project. This was something that could be completed relatively quickly. It's only half the project that we had seen, but it was a huge breath of fresh air, personally speaking, to see that we had a goal to do, something we actually were tasked with, rather than simply, outside of step 1, going and interacting with the environment somehow. This actually took a little bit more time and a little bit more strategy, because you didn't just have to go and snap a picture of something. You didn't have to collect a ship or something like that. It was all 100% within your control and not reliant on RNG or something you could breeze through. So it's a breath of fresh air in that sense, something you could predominantly control the outcome of rather than just testing your luck. For me, I like that kind of stuff. You add some projects in that maybe have 5-6 steps along the way, maybe a little tougher challenges, and we're good to go. That keeps players going. Of course, there is the power scaling of stuff that has to be done so that it's balanced for players that may not be as grindy, but also players that are, but I think that's the right path to go on. Additionally, another thing that you can kind of do and adjust, talking about things that are already existing, one thing that I'd personally like to see as just an absolute nerd for these types of things is cycling of high tier loot areas and the tables of them. So what I mean by this is there's about 3 to 4 areas on every single map that has cycled loot pools of things like horizontal grips, silencer 3s, kinetic converters, anvil splitters, snap hooks, but they don't change. They've been this way predominantly. I think they slightly have, but like not drastically. They've slightly changed in the last couple of months, but predominantly speaking, they've been that way since the beginning of the game and the launch of Arc Raiders. Changing areas of rotation where that loot could be found would do wonders for those that really like hardcore grind for loot, because it's something they have to then relearn. It keeps players on their toes, and it's something that keeps things feeling fresh by just simply moving around where those items could be. And in a similar fashion, changing loot pools in a degree could be beneficial as well. This partially feels like it's been done already, where, for example, the big 4 of Hurricane, Locked Gate, Hidden Bunker, and for the time, the retired Cold Snap map condition, previously those were the only conditions you could find your higher tier attachment blueprints. But in recent updates, they pulled the standard blueprints, those more base ones, into the residential container loot pools that you'd find, again, those higher tier attachments, and it's now all sort of combined. mind, but I'm talking a more systemic shakeup, finding augments in additional or different locations and container types, finding weapons in additional or different containers, and so on and so forth. Changing some of that foundational stuff, because right now, I mean, you could surely find a video that explains how all the blueprint spawn logic and stuff like that works out. I mean, we've got a video on the channel about that. But anyways, that's some ideas for existing architecture. Now we can get into the kind of fun stuff, the things that might be a little bit out there, but I think could actually be pretty fun. First and foremost, I also love the idea of adding more high-tier loot. And more specifically, what I'm talking about is stuff that would be kind of valuable intrinsically. Things like legendary attachments and/or weapons that do not have blueprints. Yes, you can add new things in that have blueprints, but things like your kinetic converters, anvil splitters, silencer 3s, those things all feel more valuable because, I mean, unless somebody's duping them, it's not something you're guaranteed to find one or be able to craft one if you lose those things. It might be kind of counterculture to be like, I want items without blueprints, but to me, I think that the random spawns like that from hot zones make it something that does add value to those items. One thing that I personally would love to see is a speed reloader of some kind, whether that be for your anvil, whether that be for your hull cracker, or a fast mag in general that you could end up having. I think that would do wonders for some of, again, a legendary thing. It doesn't take the balance out of play too much because it's not something you can craft regularly. It's something that is still very hard to find, or on a more grand scale, something like an exotic weapon. Something that, like how Destiny had those weapons that were super sought after, but in Arc Raiders, whether that be like an energy pistol or something like that we see later on down the line, something that is exclusive by doing a puzzle or a map condition or something like that, but something that truly takes some of the loot that we have and is like, oh dude, that's sick. Because when you look at all of what we have on offer right now, there's a couple of weapons that stand out. There's an air quote meta, but ultimately, like, there's really not that many weapons that are standout in Arc Raiders on an already short sort of list of what we have as our available armory. You got 2 to 3 weapon types of each light, medium, and heavy that really work for everything, but like, imagine there's just that 1 or 2 standout weapons that you have to do either something really tough for, you have to look really hard and looting for, but you can't quite just get a hold of it. That, I think, could be pretty cool. Now, again, power scaling, how you balance that, that's a different story, but I think that'd be something that would absolutely keep people looking or playing the game if it has to be like a set of challenges or a puzzle to go along with it. Speaking of challenges, one other thing that I personally would love to see to give value to playing and having a goal in mind for this kind of stuff, after you get past the point of like level 75 or something like that, doing your expedition project, I think a seasonal challenge system would be pretty cool. Long-term grinds with harder challenges to get some of the higher tier rewards. One thing that, like, off the top of my dome that I came up with, that like it's actually an insane challenge, but like the one thing that I thought of is like, it's impossible sometimes to find the survivor augment, or at least it is for me. I think each expedition wipe I've gone like almost 40 to 50 hours of just looting for that, to the point where some of my viewers have been like, dude, just let me donate one to you. But let's just say in theory, like one of these hard challenges for an augment like that is do 50,000, 100,000 damage to the queen without taking damage, or without taking damage from the queen, not necessarily like other Ark in the world or other raiders, but like the queen in particular. At that point, I'd say you're a true survivor, right? So like that's multiple different raids of either firing from afar, taking no damage, whatever, getting up in there, doing a ton of damage, but like somehow not taking any damage. You're a survivor. I think that kind of warrants just, hey man, here's that augment you're looking for. You could do that with a bunch of different other things, be playful, be long-term grinds that take a long while to complete that, and then you could end up having something that is a challenge system that keeps players playing, and then next thing they know, they're like, oh, we're almost at the expedition wipe already. Then on top of that, if you like have like, let's say a set of 10 of them, you end up having like a seasonal mastery that you get a unique skin for completing all of those or something. I think that'd be pretty cool. On the topic of cosmetics, I do think that we should have some sort of cosmetic challenges. One of the things that I saw a discussion about with the, what's it called, the Tick Hunter bundle, one of the discussions that I saw about that is that like that should be something you should be able to grind out for. And I completely agree. challenges for each expedition or something like that that would allow you to kill X amount of arc and salvage those parts to craft a unique skin built from those arc parts or something like that. I think that that could be a cool way to just reward players for more playtime versus paying money for that. Now, the final thing that I think would be really cool, but I really don't think would be possible, it's understandably probably not even on the sort of discussion board, would be a sort of endgame puzzle map, like a dungeon style or raid style map that might be a bit too heavy lifting, that I don't know if they'd ever actually do this, but something that is a map built for puzzles to progress, arc to fight, leading to a boss fight with like elite tier loot. Obviously, with the other threat of other raiders as well being a part of that could take you out at any point. Just something that is like the true, like really tough thing to grind through. But having a boss fight and having something that ends up granting you crazy loot at the end, I think it'd be something that those that power scale and go, again, to have the best loot of the best loot, that after they've done every queen and matriarch 20, 30 times over, they're like, all right, let's crank it up a notch. That could be where they go. But I think that's probably a little less likely. But anyways, that's the ramblings of a madman here. Somebody that really just looking for stuff to grind. Again, there could be a myriad of different reasons we have, or things to talk about to air quote fix arc raiders or bring arc raiders back. But like, that's one of the things that I think has been a persistent through line with the game for those that have been grinding it since the launch of the game, to where those that are still playing, they're like, all right, I want something more to do. It doesn't have to necessarily be a new map, doesn't have to necessarily be a new arc or a new weapon or something like that, but like things to keep me engaged, whereas we're still in that sort of lull period. And I think if some of this stuff were enacted, that sort of 6 months of lower update phases, what we have now where we get a project every month or so, or something smaller like that, I think that would kind of be a lesser point of contention, because you still do have stuff to do every single expedition. But that's where we're going to wrap it up. Before we do, a quick heads up, we've partnered with our friends over at Advanced GG, a bit under the radar here the last few months, but we're ramping things up now, going into a crazy busy fall with multiple large game updates for games like Arc Raiders and future seasons of Battlefield 6, new launches in Modern Warfare 4 and GTA 6, and everything in between. Advanced is the healthier energy supplement option. I use it as my daily comparable cup of coffee, currently drinking the Raspberry Lemonade and Magic Rainbow Sherbet as two of my personal favorite flavors that I'd highly recommend. And on that note, we've actually co-branded the Rainbow Sherbet along with a few other items on their site, like a 26-ounce ice shaker cup. But for real, I love this stuff, and if you're looking for a replacement for your own cups of coffee, give this a try, check it out, or grab a restock here before the craziness of all the games and updates coming later this fall. And if you decide to, Code Espresso can get 10% off your entire order, but no pressure at all. Just appreciate you checking it out, and of course, checking out the video. But that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of this? Is there anything you'd add to this list in relation to endgame ideas and what we think we could do to expand the lifespan of Arc Raiders and your playtime? Let me know. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Arc Raiders and even more FPS content I'd love to have in the community. We got a very busy fall upcoming, so love to have you around. For now though, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.